This camera. All right, so we're going to try a little weather game here. You've got a whole bunch of little icons. Those of you online, you probably just got them just a little while ago. I meant to get these done last night, but the last time I decided to switch from photos to icons because getting a photo from like rain to heavy rain to light rain, drizzling rain, was actually kind of impossible, where we can do it with these little images. They might go through one more sort of shift. We'll see. We might try a black background. I'm still not happy with fog. I don't know how to create an icon for fog. I think it's a cloud with wavy lines. That's what I saw with a bunch of weather icons. Oh, and I forgot drizzling. I got one for drizzling. So there'll be very.
You have an icon that's.
What's that?
We have drizzling.
Oh, you have it?
Yeah, we have it. See what doc called.
Oh, I see what I did.
But it doesn't
I
have
put
the
the
icon.
drizzle icon on Kaklahin. And so Kaklahin, I've got one that has a mix of rain and snow. And then that will, yeah.
The slush on it, right?
Yeah, so that should be slush. And then I'll get that image needs to go here, and then I've got another image which will replace that. So version 2.0. But this allows us to sort of move through the whole gamut of weather verbs. So moving through here. And the way that the verbs function are different. We'll talk about how they differ from time to time. The big thing is precipitation versus the weather being a certain way. A couple of them function a little bit differently. But we're going to see some really common things when it comes to weather. Is one, there's a thematic theme that jumps up. So one thing we've talked about is the verbs tend to go object, subject, and the verb root, and classifier root. That's how the verbs are structured. In between the object and subject, you might get some additional things. Ka is a horizontal surface. Ya is a vertical surface. Those are the first two that we're going to be introduced to. We're going to see them all over the place, and sometimes it makes sense for something to roll along a surface, or for something to be on some sort of surface. The one for heavy snow, it's because it's coming down onto basically a horizontal surface. The ya one, sometimes it has to do with a vertical surface or the face of something. At the root, you could say ka means on, ya means face. But we generally sort of say, well, it's horizontal surface and vertical surface, because sometimes it doesn't know. So when we see ones like a yaudati, it probably has something to do with moving the vertical surface, because we look at the trees and the trees start moving around. Because the yaudati doesn't mean it's breezy, it means the wind's really kicking around. And then a kausechit and a kauwadan, because it's coming down in a certain way. So what we see in weather verbs is usually one of two things. It's either going to which means weather. Everybody say and that's going to be the very first part of the verb. Is the other thing you might have is So So when we talk about verbs, I usually talk about it like it's almost like you're playing a slot machine, right? So if it's going to come up cherries, that spot is cherries. The next thing is going to be a lemon, and the next thing might be some points or whatever. But once it comes up, there's a certain number of things on the wheel. And when the wheel stops, that's what you got. And there's certain slots in the verb that work like that. And in Tlingit, there's about 20 different possible locations where things might pop up. Some of them are more common than others. There's a few of them that have to, the root and the classifier have to be there. They will always be there. And sometimes it's a zero marker, so you don't see anything, but there is something there. And then we sort of go out from there. So if we go, we've got the roots, we've got the classifier, and then in this case with weather verbs, you're not going to have a subject, Nobody's making it rain. Or nobody did the rain dance or anything like that. And you're also not going to have an object, but that object space is going to be occupied by either p or a. In this case, p always means weather. There are two others they're exactly the same, they're in the exact same spot. And then there's one a. So if there's a sort of rolling wheel, it's object pronouns, we've talked about those. Chet, I, ye, the zero marker, which can become an A for the third person, and then hus plus the zero marker, which can become an A. But then there's a couple other things on that same wheel. And they're not object pronouns, but they sort of lock that space up. An example of, and we call them A-themed verbs when they have that letter A. And there's a few of them, like atun, to hunt, atech, to dance. And there's the A is always there. It's just always there. It doesn't, I don't think it necessarily has any type of meaning. It just sort of is some certain form of a verb. The other thing is which is weather. So those are the two things that we're going to see on this. Probably in that exact same wheel, there's three They mean different things. And this sometimes gets us a little bit stymied. As in weather, as in people, as in some space. And we just sort of, the more we recognize, the more we deal with these verbs, because the one, it's built into the verb. If it's weather, right? How is it for the weather to be a certain way? The other one, the would pop up as an object, and then the other is built into the verb as in kudziti, to exist, to be in some given space. All right, so I can't remember what order I had these in, but was this, you guys have to follow the order that I'm in up here. So, they tell you guys my rain joke yesterday. As we say, it has dawned in Juno, we should shift it to it has rained on us again. It's my weather joke.
What is it? New York, we have like over 6 feet in there.
Yeah, so there it would be kunach akawadan. Kunach has to cut the kawadan. So it really snowed on them, right? So that same thing. So you could say some of these weather verbs, especially the precipitation, you could say a pronoun plus cut, and that's to say it's raining on somebody. So if you looked outside and there was some little Isha and Kate out there in the rain, say, wait, Kate, cut. It's raining on that dog. And that cut, in this case, it means to be on a rope of something. And then same thing. Hakat ayaka done. It really snowed on us. And then the other thing we talked about yesterday is that word everybody say khunach. Khunach. So there's not much to adverbs in Tlingit, so that means for something to it's really a certain way. So that's one way. So like it's, ayaka done. That verb already means it's snowing heavily. But if it's really, like they got like 70 to 90 inches, I think they were predicting to say that. And what you can do is sort of like in English, you could say it's really snowing, or you say it's really snowing. So you put like lots of emphasis on that word, and that's how you sort of pop it up even more. And it's the same thing in Tlingit. Punach has to cut a yakau. So it seems like you give it like a little tiny space, just to sort of show how much emphasis you're putting on that word. And you can sort of ramp it up if you want to. There's a few other ways you can stack. Has to cut the yakau down. Okay. So let's move through these, and you don't have to rearrange them, but you might just sort of, one thing you want to do with this exercise, and those of you online, when we do this again on Monday, I'll send you an updated version probably over the weekend. And if you just print it and cut it out, I guess we'll do a little exercise. I'll show you guys how to do that. But for now, just look at find the card, and really look at the image. You know, we try to do this thing where we're doing a lot of image-based things. On the square underneath it, as we start to look at verbs, and we're looking at them a little more closely, it shows what we call a gloss of the verb. So the first line is breaking it into all of its individual parts. The second line sort of gives a definition or a code to all of those parts. And then the line under that gives a pretty literal definition, although we wouldn't say how, say whether be was the way. Right? So there's different ways to translate Tlingit, and you'll see this when you move into stories, especially later when you got more knowledge of the Tlingit language. And you go back and forth between the translations, and sometimes you say, well, that's not what it literally says. But sometimes it's sort of like, well, the language functions differently, you know. And this is what you get with people who are raised with fluent speakers. Like sometimes the word order would be different when they're speaking English, right? So they might say, door through, let's go, right? For old time, you know, what they call the old peepin'. And they said there was a number of things. One was not being able to pronounce certain sounds. So like, I was doing work with an elder, and when we turned the recorder up, she said, I want to tell you this story. She's talking about this elder that when she was young, this lady was really pretty old when she was young. And the lady said, he said, that's the way your cock and greens after was to go hunt up and hit the date now go cock and greens. I said, cock and greens? What's cock and greens? They're saying, what is that? Because they said, you know, she says, I'm hungry. And they said, what are you hungry for? You know, she says, I'm hungry for cock and greens. Go to the store and get it for me. And so every time they ask her, she's getting a little irritated. Cock and greens, so they go to the store and they're just looking around and they're like taking guesses. And they came back and they couldn't figure it out. They got her to eat something else. And then they brought her to the store and she pointed at this can of pork and beans. So it's like, there's these certain sounds that don't exist in Tlingit. And they would tell us stories like this sometimes when we'd be sort of doubting ourselves, like, oh, I'm having a hard time pronouncing this thing or that thing. But it went the other way too. You know, so you think of what our ancestors went through to learn how to speak English, which is a very hard language. If everything's in the back of the throat, it's hard to go that way. Just like it's hard to go. Okay.
I think that story's on those Conversations, the UAS website.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it probably is. With one by Marsh. That's in That's the other one. So it's like it's going to be Christmas Carol season, right? I don't know if they do it. I don't think they do it like they used to, going door to door and singing Christmas carols. Well, Hakashat, her family is just a real Tlingit speaking family. Her whole generation, they're all speakers. It's pretty rare we have a group of siblings where all of the siblings. But when, you know, same thing when they're growing up, their parents love hymnals and Christmas carols and stuff. Let's say, died it in the dough instead of whiter than the snow. She said she was walking around with her brother, and there's this group of little white kids, and they're caroling. And, you know, they're singing it in English. That's not how they learned it. So her brother gives her a whole and says, Jack, I don't even know the words. All right. So here's the order we're going. Just moving through these cards. And you guys, I hope you guys got that email. We can just keep the camera on for now. It's pointing sort of a different direction. We'll have focus. All right. Wasakuwati.
Wasakuati.
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 Kuwake.
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 Maybe I'll share the screen just so we can move through these and talk about. So this one, it means the weather is good, but I put a bunch of the different weather icons on there because I think, I don't know, for me it's kind of a subjective thing. What's good weather to one person might not be good weather to another person.
It's all good weather if you wear the right clothes.
That's right. Like Kuwake might not even mean anything to some people. It's like any old weather. So I just put not all of them, but a bunch of them.
Yeah.
Let me check my. Okay, so I'm going to share this. All right. So continuing. Aldegon.
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 Kuwata.
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 And we did an exercise at the library on Monday where we were trying to draw these weather cards ourselves, and it's very hard to draw like a thermometer thing without like starting to laugh because it's just like, how do you draw a thermometer thing that doesn't look like a shower? I just don't know how to do that. Oh, I got them in a different order here. Okay. Push the goose.
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 So this is the first one. Well, there's a couple like kuwake. You could take the k right off of it, and you've got yake, kuwata, and you've got yata. But this is one where there's no verb shikuz, which would mean to be clouded. So it's shikuz. The weather is clouded. So that's how this one works. Pussy art.
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 Art.
So the art, yatayihin, cold water and hot water. So now we're getting into the precipitation. Glade dark wusitan.
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 So again, as you're out there interacting with other people, if you hear people say glade with a g, correction, because there's no gl sound in Tlingit. Although a lot of people, as we shift from Tlingit speaking people to non-Tlingit speaking people, we say gla, where there is no gla. So when I first students were making signs, it's lots of fun. Then I tease them, and I was like, I gla your gla. So these are things we sort of keep in mind for pronunciation. Siuda husatan.
Siuda husatan.
Siuda husatan.
Siuda husatan.
Siuda husatan.
Siuda husatan.
So then we've got, as far as the way this is structured, dak husatan means for precipitation to fall. Then there's a noun that comes right before that verb phrase that specifies what type. So that's what we'll see is we could change within all these different types of precipitation. One of my favorites is, Kasechcha is one of my favorites, but another one that's not on here, but that'll probably be one for us because I think it's so cute, is you say, when it's snowing, well, there's two there actually, and I don't have them, so I'll just talk about them. And if it's really super fine snow that really just sort of drifts around, Kledyetki da husetan.
Kledyetki da husetan.
Kledyetki da husetan.
Kledyetki da husetan.
Snow babies falling. And then nukt. Oh, right. I should explain it first. So sometimes when it's the first snow of the year or some of the last snows in the spring, you get these really giant snowflakes that come down and they kind of melt as soon as they hit the ground. And we call them nukt hati da husetan.
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 So what is nukt hati? You know, hot is poop. Poop.
And it's a bird.
Nukt.
Grouse. Grouse.
Yeah. It's grouse pooping. And so when you get those really big, oh my, it's pretty fun. That's about it. Alright, here's my fog. Come on, I'm not thrilled. Coup de grace.
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 So as we start learning more and more of these verbs, and start to throw, there's a whole mix of verbs. You know, most of these are different verbs. A few of them that are. We start paying real close attention to whether it's high tone or low, and whether it's short or long. So we've got that quats, short and high, and it's quats yayagi, foggy right now. Ayauditi.
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 So it means it's stormy or windy. Probably has something to do with moving some vertical surface. Ayakawadan.
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 Really snowing heavy. Kasechcha da.
Kasechcha da husetan.
Kasechcha da husetan.
Kasechcha da husetan.
Kasechcha da husetan.
Kasechcha da
So
husetan.
that's that really fine rain and to sort of blow around in just the slightest breeze. This one doesn't happen too much around here. Kadats da husetan.
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 So it's hailing. I've got a sleet on there. I gotta fix that too. Kaklahin da husetan.
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 And I think Siu da kakausachit.
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 So instead of fine rain, that's drizzle. It's real intermittent. Then there's a few others like for it to rain and sort of squalls, and you can keep going with these weather verbs and how we sort of talk about them. They're real important. But it was really funny because I didn't print enough of these last night for class, so I ran to my office to print one more, and I left my keys in the classroom, and then the battery died on my laptop as soon as I plugged it into the print. So I had to find the janitor, and he's a super nice guy. And I was like, hey, can you let me in my office? And so we're walking, sort of a bit of a walk, and so we're kind of going for ways, and he's like, well, it's still raining, so he starts talking about the weather, just a sort of, it's an icebreaker, right? It's important as well, like, for travel and stuff, like, there's a lot of people who couldn't get in yesterday and today because of the fog. Jonathan Price Tompkins is supposed to be here, but he's on sort of delay, I think. He makes it in. Those of you in Juneau, there's a dinner tonight at 5 o'clock at the Elizabeth Paravich Hall to celebrate a couple of bills that passed. One recognizes Alaska Native languages as the co-official languages of the state, and the other honors Kajauti with Walter Sokolov Day. So that's at 5 p.m. If you guys want to come, there'll be some food. And it should be really good. It's downtown. Jonathan Price Tompkins should be there. And Liz Medicine Crow. And we were kind of the three-headed monster that really helped that bill get passed, with coming up with different political strategies on how to squeeze out the people who don't like equality. So, and some of them weren't afraid to come right out and show that kind of thing. One of the things that's so interesting is the idea that if we recognize all these languages as equal, we're just going to create more racial tension. Craziest thing about that argument is that was the exact same argument for the Anti-Discrimination Act 60 years ago. If we're all allowed to go into the same places as equals, then there's just going to be more racial hostility. It's just crazy that that sort of logic can still exist. All right, so now we'll do these real quick, one at a time. Wasak Hogoti.
Wasakugoti.
Huwake.
Huwake.
Audagon.
Audagon.
Huwata.
Huwata.
Kujagoos.
Kujagoos.
Kusiat.
Kusiat.
Glegda Husatan.
Legda Husatan.
Siuda Husatan.
Siuda Husatan.
Hudewats.
Hudewats.
Ayaudati.
Ayaudati.
Ayakawadan.
Ayakawadan.
Kasechjada Husatan.
Kasechjada Husatan.
Kadasta Husatan.
Kadasta Husatan.
Kakshetan.
Kakshadina Husatan.
Siuda Kakausechit.
Siuda Kakausechit.
So now we're going to try something here. Let me see if I can push this camera back. That was good. Okay. So this might be harder for those of you online because I might not have them printed out and cut yet. For those of you in here, take each of these and just fold them in half. And then put them down with only the image facing up. Anybody got any questions while we're having a refolding party? I get this idea from Josh Chinney, who is doing a similar weather exercise with everyone else.
Kune, I have a question. In the perfective, the YU, or Y with the umlaut, is it called, always changes to W?
It doesn't always change to W, but it very commonly changes to W. It'll also sometimes interact with some other things and create like a long O. For example, or sometimes it's an O But it really commonly does change to a W. There are some cases, like so I'd say the verb to know something is a verb that's and it's an event verb. And that means there's no imperfective form. Like to say I know, how do you say I know? Isukuge? Do you know how to say I know? Kwasiku. So one thing you say I know, but the one thing, and this is why we sort of move away from saying past tense, present tense in Tlingit, is because you'd say kwasiku would be it. And it has that perfective marker in there because the verb has happened, right?
You already know.
Yeah, you have to know it in order to say I know it, right? So it's like you've achieved this thing. You could say yan chasquain, I'm learning it. I'm in the process of knowing it. But then you say chwasaku. So there's that perfective marker. Then you could say ausaku, he or she knows it. So the other thing that reveals is that it has an object pronoun, and there needs to be one.
What about you, dog?
Oh, yeah, I guess for that one, just, I guess flip it over so you can, I guess that's good enough. But then if you say, you know, it's yisaku. So ye would be the second person subject. Ye. So it's not always, and the other, you could say, ye yisaku. You all know. So there you've got y. So sometimes it does become a y. But most common, it's really for the second person. Most often it is a W.
Günstig.
All right. So now what I'd like to do is I'll say one, and you just pick it up and hold it up. Okay. Wasakuwati. Okay. Okay. Kuwake. Okay. Kashigus.
Can't remember which one was Kluake.
Oh, Kuwake is the two thumbs up
Oh.
on the side of a whole bunch of weather. Because, you know, it's like, how do you get a thing for good weather? A lot of people probably put sunshine.
But then it's.
I made a little weather meme. Maybe I'll show it to you
Well,
guys.
then you could just say Aldegon.
Right, exactly. And not everybody's the same. Maybe some people like it a little bit cloudy. There we go. I'll show you guys a couple of images. There was a group of us when we started making these little memes. So, this is one that I made. This is the whole gang. So basically what we're looking at is a whole bunch of rain falling. It says, Tlingit Einach Kuwa. Okay. So it says in Tlingit we say, good weather. It's just kind of a joke. I think in Juneau, we sort of come up with stuff like this. Where did I put the other one? Get one more if I can't find it real quick. We'll skip it. No. Yeah, I can't find it. I'll show you this one. Oh, there's this one. Because what we're doing is memes where it's like natives be like or somebody be like. So it says Tlingit So it shows a bunch of clouds up there. So Tlingits are always saying, "Where's my sunglasses?" Oh yeah, I'm saying. No more silly. Okay. Pussy art. Pussy art. Pussy art. Pussy art. Okay. Gleit dag husetan. Gleit dag husetan. Gleit dag husetan. Oudegan. 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 Okay. Kuwat ah. Kuwat ah. Kuwat ah.
How do you say that for in here? Right here.
You'd say yet ah. Because we had this discussion because we were in a plane one time. We're like, it's so hot in here. And someone was asking me how to say it. I was like, I think you say yet ah or uwat ah. You probably say uwat ah. No, perfective mode because like it's become hot. And then there's another way when you talk about yourself, it gets a little different because like say we got pussy art, but then you'd say art, I'm cold, and then you'd say I'm hot, which also means like I'm sweating, right? Ayaudity. 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 Okay. Codequest. 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 Codequest.
Could you use that metaphorically? Like all these weather terms, can you be like, my mind was foggy?
Yeah, I think you could say that. Yeah, it's like there was fog in my mind. There was another one too. It's like his mind whirlpool. So they say stuff like that too. So yeah, you'd probably say it. I don't know if you would use it the same, like
The same.
because like in English, maybe like I wasn't thinking straight, or I was just in a daze, sort of is how it works. Like my mind was on fog, so I wasn't thinking clearly. And there's another metaphor. I think we'll have time. We'll watch a short video with John Martin after we use, and he talks about let your mind be clear, like, and the verb comes from like for water to come in and for things to settle in the water and for it to become clear. And so it's really neat because he was saying, let your mind be at peace while you're learning Tlingit. So he was saying, if you're real frustrated, you have a hard time learning. So there is lots of metaphor, and you could certainly string them together, I'm sure, using that. Siu daka kausechit. Siu daka kausechit. No picture for that. That's the giveaway. Siu dak usitan. Usitan. Kaklahin dak usitan. Kaklahin dak usitan. Kaklahin dak usitan. Slush. Ayakawadan. 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 Heavily. Kadas da usatan. Kadas da usatan. Kadas da usatan. Hailing. Kasech da kusetan. Kasech da kusetan. Kasech da kusetan.
Is this, where Selena, you were saying?
It might be related, kasech, because the verb, when you hear that, we said, una, acha, or acha, shita. Whenever you hear that at the end of a noun, not all the time, but most often it means there's some verb right before that. It's the thing that verbs. Chita, the thing that slides. Chita, the thing that sweeps. Kuchita, the cylindrical thing that writes. And then if you hear ja at the end of something, kadunja, it usually means it's the thing that continues to do that. So it's a ch suffix that turns into a j because there's an a on. There's these pairs, sort of like we've been learning these vowel pairs. To I, to a, to oo. And we'll start seeing more and more how they shift between short and long. There's also a set of consonants where the exact same sound in your mouth, but you're turning your vocal cords on. So if you make the T sound, and you put your hand right here at the base of your neck, and you go t, t, t. Now you make a D sound, you go d, d, d. You go back and forth. D, d, d. You see your mouth is doing the exact same thing, but you're turning your vocal cords on. And there's a couple more. The CH, J, 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 J. And then there's TL to a DL. So we'll put an A in there. Gla. So they're the same thing, but your vocal cords are coming up. So there's certain ones where, and a K to a G. Exact same sound in your mouth, vocal cords come up. And this becomes important because sometimes when you put some kind of vowel suffix onto it, it'll just turn it into the voiced version of it. And you'll see this, especially when you get into possessive forms of nouns. So you get ahidi, and it turns into a D. I'm going to cue this video up. So keep these little weather cards. We'll replace a couple of them that might need some fixing. And we'll share the screen with you guys. We've been working on here making Tlingit more accessible. Part of that has to do with the internet, but also we're trying to make these also available in CD forms and DVDs and stuff so people can have copies of their own. That should be happening probably within the next year. So I've got a YouTube channel for the work I do here at UAS, YouTube/UAS ANLS, so all in capitals, University Alaska Southeast, Alaska Native Languages Studies. On here, there's some, you can watch our classes, so if you were to miss a class, you could come here and check out the beginning Tlingit section, or if you wanted to rewatch something that we were talking about, you know somebody who wants to learn Tlingit, you can say, hey, look, every class that we have is online. You just go there and watch it. It's not always the easiest way, but at least there's a way. And we're trying to eliminate the excuses. So we're going to say, how come there shouldn't be a reason for you to not learn? There's also a link to Tlingit language videos from other people that I've found that are out there. Yakatan has some coloring books that they made, and they've got them online. They're very fun, really fun for activities for kids. Then there's some fun videos, like we did some puppet shows in here for intermediate Tlingit class. That was funny. Chi Wu might get the award for funniest one. I wrote a song called 10 Little Indians, and he did 10 Jaitak Kisani with Vivian Chia. And then there's also some online lessons. But one of the things that's the most important is going to the fluent Tlingit speakers, which is a link on here. And there's a number of conversations. 9 out of 10 of them don't have subtitles. But you can just turn it on and just listen to Tlingit if you want to just have it playing in the background. If you go to tlingit.info, there's an audio tab of most of these as well. I'm trying to make the audio available. Stories, speeches, these ones by Sam Johnson, almost all of them are really funny. There's a couple that are serious. He tells really funny stories. So this is Katie Nook. He's talking about learning Tlingit. Listen to this, and we'll be there for the day.
Amazing. These are premonitions I have, nephew, for students. They can maximize. There's no limit in learning when you focus. That your vision is right on the language and nothing else. But somebody's going to laugh at me if I mispronounce the thing. Barriers. We don't need to worry about that. We need to focus. It too.
But let me fix that. Let your thoughts be clear like water.
Let there be calmness in your spirit. And that's why philosophers say angry students can't learn. Angry teachers cannot teach. Angry leaders cannot lead. What does it say? That means there's no calmness in the spirit. And to me, the learning process needs to be identified and learned in a correct way. You come into the room, you're coming into a new world, the Tlingit world. Yes, and you need to say, I'll try to learn all the words that is to be learned in Tlingit. So, the main portion that I could say in identifying today may be the first day that I will learn one new word, maybe 2 today. So, here what?
Can you give 30 seconds?
Mm-hmm.
Just in Tlingit.
Okay. Tatiana Sakadutsi. Gasa hatu hifati at. Hastis ko has adisa kashikaya. Just to see I saw how to get a partner. Australia has a connect. The Akhar to Atia Shukwana. Yes, saw how to so ship up. Yana so Sine Akhar to Atia. Has the 2 unity. Atia how to toss it you and not. 2 plus 2 hayırlatandı. Diye vakti vurnatıç. Ya, şu ana kadar kutu yaşaydı. Adakı yüksek çoğu ya. Siyaka kakak. Şeyleşti siyaka kakak. Yakıtı. Hasta yok atar biyat hasayı. Use my grandfather's language. They have premonition, whether we hang on to the language and the lifestyle for the clan. It begins with each individual. Their premonition. I try to walk their walk. I try to talk their talk. Yeah, well, 30 seconds again.
Okay, Ms. G. Yes, there's lots of these videos that are available. Monday we'll go over you guys' words. I'll finally get your words back to you. We'll talk about wrapping up. You make it to the dinner, you should come. It should be pretty fantastic. And just send me an email. Weather, we're going to move into how to say it was cloudy yesterday, cloudy today, cloudy tomorrow. We'll see how those verbs start to change. It'll give us a preview of what we're in for. Spend the next couple of years of your life trying to figure out plenty of verbs. Anyone? Yeah.
So we're only going over the, like, are we presenting on Monday? Or
We're going to do this. We're going to do the presentations after Thanksgiving.
okay.
You'll probably do your words that final Wednesday of December, and then you'll do just one presentation for your final, which incorporates a lot more English. So that's what's expected. Push some things back and we drop one thing.
Okay. So we're gonna do the animal game.
Oh yeah, we never did Perfective, did we? We'll do that on Monday. So study your water animals. We can throw plants in there as well, water animals. And that's what we'll
Plants
do.
and water animals?
Well, not plants that are in the water.
Okay.
There's some plants. Sure.
We'll do that on Monday.